All right, welcome back to In His Mind. All right, I'm going to be doing a video on this. Link is down below. Oh, this is terrible. Navy SEAL reveals his demons post-war. And that's what I'll be doing a video on. All right, I stopped halfway through and I realized I should probably do something like this. So here it goes.
But what about, like, you've been really open on your platform, not just through your guests, but with yourself, about like your own experience with, we highlighted a little bit of this earlier, but like, you know, taking it home with you, you know, being in war zones and high octane situations for 15 years.
All right. I and quite a few others have not been in these combat zones. We were deployed. We were working on base. I think some people either jokingly or disrespectfully called us fobbits because we always stayed on base. Sure, we weren't in harm's way, but we usually provided much needed care of some kind. Communications, anything to do with food, storing, prepping, cooking, taking out the trash, whatever. All that stuff's important. Maintaining vehicles, because IEDs and other kind of issues that would prevent vehicles from being able to be used. Of course, there's also those dealing with the local nationals too. Slightly different, less important, but you do need to have that buffer, that go-between with the local population and those inside and on the military, you know, on the installations. You gotta, like for example, having translators, that really matters. I was stuck on the side of the base making sure the communications were up and running. So that was something that I did. But my first deployment, I did a lot of guard duty, more than I ever wanted to. Of course, working with foreign nationals, mercenary groups, something Saber maybe, from Kenya. Yeah, I hope those guys are doing well, wherever they're at.
Pretty much. And then shutting it down in 2015 and coming home and being a civilian and still having, I don't know, maybe some of the things that you had to do every day now hitting you because you get to think about it for the first time. Like, how bad did the experiences with PTSD get for you?
They got pretty bad. I mean, you know, when you come home, it's not just all the traumatic events that you've experienced and all the things that you had.
Sometimes when you leave the combat zone, leave deployments, you left a part of yourself back there. And in some cases, it will take you a very long time to recall who you were before, because your image, your mind, a lot of things changes. You pick up extra baggage, you pick up extra trauma, extra scars of some kind, or sometimes you literally leave with less of yourself, as in with physical injuries. You're missing limbs, you're disabled in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes your mind gets cracked. My mind got cracked, and I can't remember bits and pieces there. And frankly, it hits differently than actually having a physical disability, unfortunately. That being said, it's good to make it. It's good to show that you have overcome and you were able to make this succeed. And to be honest, I feel like Jordan Peterson nailed some of this stuff on the mark with his videos talking about how you got to become a monster in order to overcome. I think this was in regards to like a family member's death, because your brothers and sisters, your battle buddies, they're your family. You lose one, you kind of have to find something to help keep you going and not fall apart when you're overseas. Can't quite compare it to a Navy SEAL, but I can at least say I've been deployed twice to Iraq.
To do and all the things that you had to see and shit that maybe you could have done something about that you didn't. And it's also,
by the way, I'm going to put the link for the actual video here. I'm going to put the link down below so you can check it out for yourself here. I'm only going to play the first part of it because let this be his own video, but I want to add a couple parts here to complement the video, so to speak. Being a veteran changes once you become a veteran, rather than just simply like, this is what I imagine it to be, this is what I dream it to be, and oh, it's so awesome. And then you go through it, your perspective changes, and you're just like, wow. You just don't realize what it is until midway through, or halfway, or even completely when it's over, when you just wake up and realize.
You're stripped of your identity, you know, that you've put so much into that.
And your identity, once it's gone, it's gone. You can go back to bits and pieces with nostalgia, but since I've had years with this, and the some of the previous videos talking about my struggle with masculinity, let's make something very clear here. Some people never formulate their identity for who they were before they joined the military, because, you know, many join at a very young age. So they don't know who they are, they don't know their dreams, they don't know their goals, what they're passionate about, what they love, what they hate. And there's a whole bunch of ideals and stuff just shoved in, especially during a time of war. Patriotism, you know, for the love of your country. Stuff where that may be true, but for like the country and not for yourself. And so losing whoever you are, maybe even losing your life, like, there's a lot of very hard questions that need to be asked along the journey of your life. And some people just don't ever get the time or the chance to do so, or they never realize just how important this stuff actually is, because once your identity is changed or gone, what's going to replace it?
So much blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, just to get to the point where you...
I actually forgot something else too. What if you adopt lies as your identity? You know, you're trash, you're a monster, you're the worst of the worst. That kind of happened to me too. And I had a good solid foundation, family support, and so I was able to meet up the challenge and not fail, and help prove to others that they were wrong. I'm not the monster that other people claim that I was. It is a day-by-day and a step-by-step process till I was able to look back at what I overcame.
You have the opportunity to go into combat as a spec operator. I mean, that alone is...
Keep in mind, there's plenty of movies. Black Hawk Down is one of the first that comes to mind as far as with special forces, all right? Tears of the Sun is a good fictional one too, but it's not real. There's plenty of them out there. Platoon and a couple others out there. Go for it. Take a look. You know, this stuff matters.
You know, a grueling process, and then to experience it, and to experience loss, and you come home and you don't feel appreciated at all, and all you hear...
One more thing too. People in the military, they aren't, unless they got some exceptionally good, decent NCOs, they're not told to deal with shit or their problems. It's basically shove that in a corner, deal with it later, and later never comes, if it ever does. You actually have to sit down until like something happens fucking smacking you in the face, and you're just like, I'll deal with this now because it's right there and it's already a shitty day. And for others, it's basically like, you got someone wise saying, look, this is in your path, this is an obstruction, or this is ruining your relationships in some way, you know? Because people get married, and it's just like, wow, stuff happens, and like, the person who you thought you were married to, or that your spouse thought they were married to, it's not necessarily a lie, they're just different. Shit changed them. I say that respectfully because, let's be honest, there's a lot that happens in war that is awful, destructive, and probably evil. I think conflict is good, but war, death and destruction, mutilation, and loss, pain, trauma, all of this and so much more. It's just people aren't even told you should process this stuff. They're just told instead, shove it in a corner and deal with it later.
Are everybody's opinions on why we shouldn't be there, and you see people like Gallagher and these Blackwater guys get fucking railroaded.
Everyone has a fucking opinion. You gotta pick and choose who you're gonna listen to. Ignore the rest.
And it can build a lot of resentment. A lot of resentment. And so you're dealing with all of this shit.
Nothing like anger to motivate you, and nothing like pain and bitterness to fucking railroad you in your life and for who you are. Excuse me for being blunt here. I'm going back to my, a trigger. Military memories. The military part of my life may never actually fully disappear. I don't like to swear, but let's be honest here. When you're trying to call things out, you want to be honest, transparent, and for me and other people in the military, going back to swearing, it's natural. It's what we've learned, how to deal with a coping mechanism. It's how we deal with some of this shit. It is tiring. Once you learn this stuff and you go through it, it sticks with you. It's hard, man. It's hard to beat it. Hard to move on too and let it go.
You know what I mean? I mean, fuck, man, you can't even get medical care when you get home because the VA is a fucking disaster. And
I had help making my way through the VA too. I can testify this, and there are lines every single day because you don't realize just how many service members and everyone that's tied to their family is actually getting care and help from the VA. No disrespect to the VA, because they have a tough job dealing with those in the military, those who are dealing with the paperwork. There is a lot that goes into it. They're working as best as they can, and they're dealing with some people that have issues of their own. They are overloaded. They have a lot on their plate here, and there's obviously shit that happens that people fall through the cracks. And to make matters worse, some people, they're genuine victims, and they don't have the paperwork to say this happened, to reinforce their narrative, their story, and their personal experience. They could be arriving with a leg missing and still denied care because there was no paperwork. It's absolutely atrocious. I hate swearing, but I have to limit that,
nobody gives a shit. You don't ever hear anybody talking about that, do you?
Not enough.
There's not enough veterans speaking up on these issues. Instead, half of them are drowning their sorrows in alcohol. I don't know if that's still the case. And then the other half are self-deleting because they come back and there's a whole bunch of issues and problems, or a serious lack of them, because their spouse is gone. Their bank account is gone. Their dog and their vehicle is gone. And so their chapter ends and they check out. They self-delete. All due respect, these guys came back and there was nothing there. And they had no support, no friend to be like, I'll be there for you. Too emotional. Way too emotional. I am not crying on camera.
All you hear about is, we got to do something for these people because they can't get their shit together. We got to make it easier. We got to drop standards. We got to fucking, and it's like, what the fuck, man? What about the people that actually give a shit about this fucking country? What about them? Nobody cares. VA is still a disaster. It always will be a fucking disaster. Nobody gives a shit except other veterans.
This is why I think God allows some of this shit to happen, is because people need to wake the fuck up with what's going on. Doesn't necessarily matter if it's right or wrong. Too many people are out sidelined when they could actually be doing something good. Even if it's just simply checking up on your friends. Hey, you good? You doing all right? Because one of the worst things to ever happen is to take men out of the equation who can actually help their neighbors. Men are literally half of the equation here. As far as the physical work is concerned, all right? There's the spiritual side, but there's the physical side as well. There's so much that complements it, and the first thing that usually goes is the men. The men are disposable. No, they're not. Someone's lying to you. Men become fathers. Men become so much more. They are usually the first line of defense of anything, a country or a personal life.
We have to lift ourselves up because nobody else will do it for us.
Yes and no. Sometimes you got some good men in your life to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing here, or hey, here's my foot up your ass. Drill sergeants being one of them. It's guys like me, we're not like falling between the cracks. We're like in between different spots, and we're like, hey, this shit's needed. Oh man. Like, you need some good advice. These kids who I talk to, they need some decent role models. I may not be the best role model for compared to others, but I'm doing the best I can, and I'm doing well with what I have, and then some, because I'm getting some support as well. I'm not taking the credit for myself. In fact, I would rather give credit than take credit. Moving on here. This is actually harder the second time around. I got through like almost 5 minutes, and I was like, dude, this is powerful. I need to do a video on this.
And support each other, and we're good at that, in a lot of ways, but it's tough, man, to have all these different feelings and experiences happening to.
That's something else too. These feelings are not processed well, and therefore they remain stuck in a chaotic mess. So it's like, what happens? What do you do? That's where shoving shit aside takes priority. It's because it's the easiest thing to do, and you process it later. Not saying there's not anything particularly wrong with processing later when you're in the middle of a crisis, but at some point you're going to need to be like, take out a notepad, write some stuff down, and be like, categorize this stuff so you can process through it and get through it, and not let it get in the way of you enjoying your life and living and finding goals, dreams, anything to pursue, even a woman. Let's be honest, putting women first in your life means you're putting them on a pedestal. Women have a very hard time respecting men who put them on pedestals and put them first in their life. This is taking God out of the picture. If you want to put God in the picture, God needs to be first, and therefore a woman could never be first in your life. And then, since she needs guidance and leadership because women support men, it's like you kind of have to put yourself before her. And also, this is supported by scripture too. I really don't want to pull up some Bible verses here. Might do it later, might come back and edit and put it in the description down below. Moving on. This is hard.
To you, and then feeling all that shit on top of it, and having to reinvent yourself. I mean, what do you do? What do you do as a fucking washed up Navy SEAL, CIA guy?
And this is the entire point where I was like, you know what, I need to put down my foot and just go into this. What do you do when you come back? You lost your identity. Everything's changed. Who you were is no longer who you are. Process this stuff so you can discover yourself, or rediscover yourself, reinvent yourself. Be like, this is what I like doing. This is what I love doing. I like doing photography. I like messing around with Magic the Gathering. There's a couple other things too. I like pets, because you can't exactly take care of pets when you're overseas. Of course, you'll see a couple pictures and movies talking about some really cool animals that became mascots of this platoon or such. Japan has a couple of these stories. But rediscovering yourself, basically it comes down to this. Get yourself moving. Don't stop. And when you do, you got to take time out to rest for your health. Your mentally, physically, because burnout happens. We break. We're already broken before we join the military, so there's taking that into account as well. But that's a different kind of breaking. So, finding ways to pick yourself up so you can move on. You got to find the holes in your life, you have to find ways to translate your skills over into the civilian side. You need to get help because you go through shit that not just simply breaks you, it changes you. You've got trauma, you got scars, you got baggage. It's harder for others to experience and understand because they haven't been deployed, they haven't been downrange. And in some cases, they haven't fucking taken a life, they haven't exchanged fire, they haven't killed anyone. Like, I can't even talk to my sisters about this stuff because it's like, do you not understand? When I came back from my deployment, they're like trying to get me to mess with their kids, and I'm just like shaking my head, looking at them like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like, shit. These dealing with kids overseas is like during the time 2008 to 2011. These years, the terrorists over there, they used women, children like explosive devices, like strapping them into vehicles, handing these kids with grenades, having them drive or walk off towards checkpoints, and then detonating the fucking trigger right outside. Soldiers and Marines learned to call it in, got permission, lit the vehicle up, lit the kid up, and it fucked so many people up. It crushed them because it's like they're looking at their own kid and they're like, you have to. It's your life or their life. Like, when it comes down to it, it's just sad. It breaks people up. So yeah, I still think that one truck that passed me on by during my first deployment was full of like people under a tarp. I don't know. I can't verify that, but the image hit me and it haunted me for years, was the fact that that truck probably had dead people in it. I saw this on deployment once, and I don't know. It's just a very strong image, a strong feeling, a decay, a sickness, something that was death related. Never forgot that, and I still remember the image of that truck to this day. And this was back in 2008. But yeah, sorry. The whole original point was you got to make those connections when you leave the military so you can find your way forward in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you need friends, sometimes you need counseling, sometimes you just need that time to recover and pull yourself together, because you know what? Not everyone who joins a war is going to be 18. Some people are going to be like, some men are going to be adults. This is why I am strongly against trans and women being in the military, not just because men are going to throw the mission aside to save and protect that woman, but because of the destabilization, the breaking, the changing, the trauma, the scars. We men do not want to see women go through this shit, and I am sick and tired of arguing with people who don't understand this fucking concept. Death and destruction is not something men normally want to see women go through, especially if you are attached to them. You know, you like them, she's cute, attractive, hot, whatever. It's just damn sad.
What do you do?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. The skills don't fucking translate. You gotta start a business, but I mean...
They do. You just gotta look for how they translate, because generally this stuff is not public, like it's all out there in your face and, oh, okay, I know how this works. If you are a surgeon, a doctor, the stuff translates over. Communications translates over. You, an infantry, how would that translate over? Being an MP, learn to be a cop or something? Maybe. But that's harder. If you are specialized and you've got some training that's specialized, maybe that could translate over. Not disagreeing with them, I'm just saying, like, the more you've been through, the longer you've lived, the more it comes to you quickly. Of course, it took me like 10 years to actually understand some of the stuff myself.
You know how hard that shit is. Nobody's going to tell you how to do it. Nobody, I mean, not that, and none of these guys expect them to, but some people just don't.
I'm going 5 minutes and then I'm stopping. All due respect, I want you guys to check out the video here because it's impactful. You're only going to get half of it from me.
Have it in them, you know, but these skills, they don't translate, so you have to start over. You go from the apex of war fighting, but what you go from what people dream about being, I mean, fantasizing about it when you're little.
Talked to my old NCO about this, and there was other information too. The Black Beret, when I was a kid, I was like, dude, I would love to get a Black Beret. That was one of my goals, my dreams. Yeah, I barely think about that now. And you know what? The Rangers, they were fucking pissed off when the Black Beret became the standard of the Army back then. Because you know what? That's what they had. They fucking earned that. I earned it, but the standards are very different, you know? Having to put yourself through hell and say, this is what this is... I'm saying this wrong, but I'll just say it, all right? Bear with me here. Like, part of the badge of honor for those Rangers and those Delta operators was a Black Beret. They're now choosing, they've now gone to something else, and it's been like over a decade since they switched, I think. Well over, maybe 15 years, I don't know. Can't remember. I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
Playing G.I. Joes and watching the...
Oh, yeah. So, your inspiration. It's going to be there. It's going to hit you. And for me, one of mine was the Black Beret. Seeing those in those videos, I was like, dude, I want to have that so bad. What happens once you get it? What then?
Fucking Vietnam movies and watching shit like Black Hawk Down and Lone Survival and all these things, right? Nowadays, what else are they watching? Benghazi, all that kind of stuff. You know, and then you come home and it's just all stripped away from you. And it's time to start over. Where do you start? What do you do?
I'll end there. And in the case that Wartime Stories, I linked at like 10 videos back, the update for Dream, and I was like, dude, Wartime Stories came out with this one video. Third story in that particular video was about guys who were a year before me in Air Ramadi, encountered something, and that entity left with one of those soldiers. And they're like, dude, I don't want to talk about this because guess what? They're going to think I'm crazy, and I'm going to lose my entire career. That's why many people in the military don't speak up about some of this stuff, is because they don't want to jeopardize their career, their military career and all that. Yeah, but what do you do? Make connections, translate your skills over, get help, because here's the thing, no matter how smart you are, there's always going to be someone who's a little bit smarter than you, who knows more than you, has more connections, who can possibly hook you up. Because most people on the outside who actually, you know, like the military, they're going to want to see you succeed. They want to see you go farther than where you're at currently, you know? And on top of that, there could be pride involved. Like, you served the military. You served in the military. You served your country. You've earned help. You've earned respect. You've gone above and beyond what the average citizen will ever do. And some people, they are pissed. They are upset. They are depressed that they cannot serve in the military. So, like, there is definitely a lot there. Just got to ask for help. You just got to be like, throw your hand up and be like, say whatever you need to say. You could save face. You could just throw something out there that's half being transparent, half honest. Because you know what? Asking for help is not exactly built into men who are in the military. It's not. It's just not. But you know what? You recognize a need, you go for it. You go to fix it. You don't let it stop. You don't let it derail your entire life. It does ultimately come down to that, but not everyone gets to that point where they're like, yeah, need help because shit's fucking me up. Oh, this is hard. Still, link for the video is down below. It is very powerful. I'm still a veteran. I haven't forgotten. I value professionalism. I try not to swear, but you know what? For the military side, apologies. Got to be honest, got to be transparent. Got to keep it real. Until next time.